There's a posh girl in the office who comes in every day with designer handbags and high heels. But her bag always has a £49 price tag dangling from it. In contrast, another colleague often wears workwear, but the jade bracelet on her wrist always makes me count several zeros. My best friend and flatmate, Wilma, knows about my ability, so she always brings me along when she goes on blind dates. Help me verify, Melody. He says his family is wealthy. Is it true? She asks. I sit nearby, discreetly observing the man chatting animatedly with Wilma. After looking him over, I text her, shoes £500, shirt £300, watch over £10,000. But the car key on the table is a model, only £9.99. Wilma's smile freezes. After bidding a friendly farewell to her date, she walks over and sits next to me, looking worried. I try to comfort her, don't fret, things will get better. But how can she not worry? Wilma's parents passed away early, and her grandmother raised her with great difficulty. Recently, the elderly woman fell ill and urgently needs money for surgery. We returned to our rented flat in silence, with nothing more to say that night. As luck would have it, 2 new employees joined our company the next day. One of them was quite young, but from his tie to his socks, every item was expensive. And his face was particularly handsome and charming. He was perfect, completely meeting Wilma's requirements. So, according to my plan, Wilma came to find me just before we finished work. She was wearing a black off-shoulder bodycon dress and had done her makeup in a stunning American style. Everyone's eyes were glued to her, unable to look away. I knew this was one of Wilma's battle outfits, the one named Determined to Succeed. Inviting just Alaric, the rich young man, to an office welcome party seemed a bit obvious, so I smiled at the other new employee. Linus, why don't you join us too? By the way, I'm Melody Hayward, I added. Compared to the flashy Alaric, Linus looked quite plain. Not only did his clothes lack any logos, but the prices were all zeros. Really, from his shirt to his shoes, everything was zero. How strange! I almost thought my superpower had malfunctioned, but looking around, all other items were displaying prices normally. So, there was only one explanation: poverty. I remembered when I was little, my mum buying floral fabric to sew me dresses. As she sewed, she'd say, "Melody, don't envy the popular girl in your class. She has a princess dress, and so do you. You're mummy's little princess, after all." So I happily wore the dresses my mum made by hand every summer. Perhaps Linus was in a similar situation. He couldn't afford clothes from shops, so he had to sew them himself. And handmade items that don't enter the commercial market have a price of zero. Sigh, since acquiring this superpower, this was the first time I'd seen someone so poor. My expression must have been too earnest because Linus's cold and indifferent face suddenly showed a trace of an awkward smile. "All right," he said. The 4 of us went to a restaurant near the office. The atmosphere during dinner was quite pleasant. Alaric was outgoing, and Wilma was lively. The 2 of them quickly engaged in animated conversation. Linus and I only needed to chime in occasionally. After the meal, the other 2 headed to the pub next door, leaving Linus and me standing on the pavement, at a loss. It's still early. Shall we each go home, or find somewhere else to sit for a while? Linus looked up at me and asked. Though he was poor, he had quite a nice demeanor. I planned to kill some time nearby, waiting for Wilma to go home together. But looking around at the nearby shops, they all seemed rather expensive. Worried about putting Linus in a difficult financial position, I said, "You go on home. I'll take a stroll in the park." Linus frowned slightly. "If you don't mind, I could accompany you for a walk in the park." The park was free to enter, so even the impoverished Linus shouldn't have a problem with that. So I said, "All right then, let's go together." The weather was nice tonight, and the park was well landscaped, making for a very pleasant walk. Halfway through, we got thirsty and went into a small shop to buy cold drinks. I watched in horror as Linus reached for a plain white package. "Stop!" I cried out. He did indeed stop, looking at me in confusion. "What's wrong? That ice lolly cost £4. Poor people can't buy that. They'd cry themselves to death if they did." To prevent Linus from expiring in tears, under the shopkeeper's intense gaze, I grabbed 2 that were priced at 10p from the corner. Let's get these. They're tasty and quench your thirst. So we each paid separately and got 2 cheap ice lollies, then continued strolling through the park. Linus took a bite of his ice lolly and suddenly chuckled. I can't believe they still sell these. I used to eat them as a kid. When Linus smiled, not only did he have canine teeth, but dimples in his cheeks too. Suddenly, he seemed kind of cute. I nodded encouragingly. Right? They're very cheap. Suits you well. Linus looked puzzled. Suits me well? Afraid of hurting his self-esteem, I quickly added, suits me too. Suits us both. Linus seemed moved by my words, the corners of his mouth turning up. Really? That's what I think too. Perhaps it was the cheap but delicious ice lolly that lowered our guards, but Linus took the initiative to ask me about some things at the company. His position was as an algorithm engineer, and I happened to be very interested in that field, so we chatted back and forth, becoming increasingly at ease. In the end, it was actually Wilma who called me, urging me to come home. Back at home, we curled up on the bed in our shared flat, Wilma's face full of anticipation. I think Alaric is really great. Not only is he gracious, but his personality is wonderful too. I also offered my opinion, I think Linus is quite nice as well. His words and manners are especially comfortable to be around. Wilma made her final judgment, all right then, let's set a small goal. Within 3 months, we need to snag at least one of them. How about it? This goal of hers, well, it sounded quite exciting. But the problem was, how do you snag a man who's completely skint? Throw money at him? Not realistic. Though my financial situation was better than Wilma's, I was only just comfortably off. Beauty? Impossible. If I had Wilma's looks, I might consider it. Personality? Not suitable. The fact that I turned 3 confessing men into just maids said quite a lot. I made a difficult decision, how about I just try to help Linus save some money? I'll have to cater to his interests. After all, he really is poor. The next day at noon, I overheard Alaric Stedman saying to Linus Thornton, let's go have sushi at that place next door. Sushi? No way. That sushi restaurant next door is overpriced and tastes awful. They're just ripping people off. I can't let Linus waste his money there. As their senior colleague who had joined the company 6 months earlier, I knew all the best places to eat, drink, and have fun in the area like the back of my hand. However, Linus was busy fixing a bug and barely heard Alaric. He absent-mindedly agreed, sure, give me 2 minutes. I approached them, hey guys, I know a great place for Scotch broth that's much better than that sushi place. Want to join me? Plus, every Tuesday, you get £5 off when you pay with a credit card. Before Alaric could react, Linus perked up at my suggestion, raising an eyebrow with interest. Alaric, let's try that instead. Alaric's face scrunched up, Scotch broth versus sushi? That's quite a downgrade for lunch. Hearing him say that, I was absolutely fuming. Look at Alaric, dressed head to toe in designer brands, then look at Linus, he'd changed his clothes today, but it was still a simple black and white outfit, still screaming broke. Alaric, don't you know how to look out for your less fortunate friend? Never mind, I'll protect Linus's wallet myself. The 3 of us found the Scotch broth place. As soon as we walked in, we were greeted by the aroma and the bustling crowd of customers. Linus praised, Melody's picked a great spot. Alaric still had a sour look on his face, right up until the steaming bowls of Scotch broth were served. He cautiously took a sip, then his expression changed to one of disbelief. How is this so delicious? I teased him with a smile, hey, who was it that said Scotch broth was inferior to sushi? Alaric slurped up some broth, playing dumb, who said that? It wasn't me, must have been Linus. Then, Alaric wolfed down the rest of his meal. Linus suggested from the side, if you're still hungry and want another serving, we can stack the member discount we just scanned with the one we got earlier. I was thoroughly impressed. Not only had Linus quickly familiarized himself with the discount rules, but he was also applying them creatively, unlocking hidden savings. Truly a man who knows how to pinch his pennies. To win his heart, I'll have to become even more impressive than him. But in my war of love, there's always an enemy lurking within our own ranks. Alaric, true to his rich boy nature, never holds back when he's displeased about something, always speaking his mind on the spot. When I took them for another 10-pound lunch, Alaric couldn't contain himself anymore. Right in front of Linus, he complained, "Melody, why do we always eat such cheap meals? It's not very satisfying." I swear I saw Linus's spoon tremble slightly. Keeping a smile on my face, I mentally wished I could sew Alaric's mouth shut. How could he be so emotionally tone-deaf? Before I could think of a tactful response, Linus had already spoken up for me. "Melody is just trying to help us save money, and she always chooses places that are nutritious and clean. If you're not happy with it, you can go eat by yourself." Alaric pouted, reluctantly saying, "It's no fun eating alone, I don't want to do that." "Then stop complaining about Melody's choices." I looked at Linus's serious face as he lectured Alaric, feeling very touched. He's really wonderful. I hope payday comes soon, so Linus can have a bit more financial breathing room. Perhaps due to my dual expectations, I was more excited than usual on payday. But my joy was premature. On the very first day after receiving our salaries, Linus Thornton came to work wearing brand new clothes. Shirt, £199. Trousers, £299. Shoes, £399. Everything from head to toe was new, with the creases on his trousers still clearly visible. The files I was holding slipped from my grasp, scattering across the floor. I crouched down awkwardly to pick them up, and Linus helped me. I thanked him with a flushed face, but my mind was still reeling with confusion. Noticing my stare, Linus fidgeted with the hem of his shirt, looking a bit embarrassed. "Does the outfit look odd?" "I spilled coffee on myself this morning and had to quickly buy something from a shop nearby." I was in a rush and didn't look too closely. Goodness, even his casual purchases cost nearly £1,000. Even if software engineers earn well, one shouldn't be so extravagant right after payday. Heartbroken, I walked past the spendthrift with a dejected face, not wanting to utter another word. Linus made a gesture as if to stop me, but seemed to quickly realize it wasn't appropriate and let his hand drop. A while later, he came to my workstation. Despite it being work hours, he was slacking off, talking about lunch plans. "Melody, what shall we have for lunch today?" I declined politely, "Sorry, I have plans today." "I won't be joining you for lunch." Linus seemed taken aback by my attitude. He hesitated before saying, "Would you like us to bring back something for you?" "No need, you and Alaric can eat whatever you like. Don't worry about me." He seemed about to ask something else, but I turned away and started a phone call with a client. My tone was gentle, but inside I was fuming. "Every penny I helped you save, you've spent on clothes. Linus Thornton, I'm never having lunch with you again." Normally, Linus and I have overlapping work that requires communication, but today, I resorted to emails instead of calls, and calls instead of face-to-face interactions whenever possible. As soon as work ended, I grabbed my bag and left. Feeling utterly dejected, I went to Wilma's workplace and dragged her out for drinks. She was surprised. "Why the long face? Have you tasted the bitterness of love?" I ranted, "Yes. I'm giving up on Linus Thornton. He's a complete fool." After hearing my indignant account, Wilma could barely contain her laughter. "Everyone has a bit of vanity. As long as it's within reason, it's acceptable. Melody, why don't you observe him for a few more days?" Wilma's words made me waver. Then, remembering her situation, I asked, "What about you and Alaric? He's been casually asking me about you lately. He must fancy you." Wilma smiled coyly, "It's in the works. I'll tell you when it's successful." Thanks to Wilma's advice, I decided to give Linus another chance. Especially when I saw him the next day at work, back in his usual modest attire covered in zeros, my smile returned in full force. Linus, who had been lost in thought, immediately stood up when he saw me. "Melody, were you upset yesterday?" I was caught off guard by his direct question. But Linus continued, "I couldn't figure out why you were unhappy, but I thought it couldn't be wrong to try and cheer you up. How about I treat you to a movie after work tonight?" "A movie?" Going alone? Isn't that just a prelude to romantic tension? My heart nearly leapt out of my throat, ready to break into a dance routine. Linus Thornton turned his phone screen towards me, showing the cinema he had selected. All my rosy daydreams burst instantly, and I quickly protested, "We can't go there. That cinema is overpriced, it's not worth it." He smiled ruefully, "But I wanted to treat you." Goodness, Linus was trying to make me happy despite being so frugal. I was truly touched. I said firmly, "I know a place where we can watch films for free. I'll take you there. Don't worry, I've got this covered. I absolutely won't let money be spent where it shouldn't be." Linus looked like he wanted to laugh but managed to hold it back, only saying very seriously, "I'll follow your lead." Perhaps I was reading too much into it, but I felt Linus's gaze on me was a bit tender. I took Linus to the film museum. They show free screenings every Friday evening. I discovered this place by chance when I was at university and became a regular. Though later I got into other hobbies and came here less often. Linus seemed a bit uncomfortable when he saw the museum. He hesitated at the entrance, looking like he wanted to say something but couldn't quite get it out, as if he was conflicted inside. Was he afraid of being judged for taking advantage of freebies? I encouraged him, "Come on in, the audience here are all film enthusiasts. Since it's a hobby, why talk about expensive or cheap? We're all here to appreciate art together, connecting through our hearts." Isn't that wonderful? Linus was moved by my words and nodded solemnly, "You're right, it is wonderful." The purpose of establishing this place was to provide a platform for enthusiasts to exchange ideas. But as we were waiting in the lounge for the screening to start, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared out of nowhere and, without a word, grabbed Linus's hand. "Mr. Thornton, what brings you here?" Before I could react, Linus had already grasped the man's hand in return, shaking it up and down. "Hello, I'm here with a friend today to watch the free screening." The angle of his smile looked rather stiff. I frowned and asked, "Linus, Mr. Thornton? Do you know this person?" Linus turned to look at me, raising his voice slightly and speaking in a tone that brooked no argument. "My Twitter handle is Mr. Thornton. I used to volunteer at this museum, helping them plan events." The middle-aged man immediately chimed in, yes, Mr. Thornton helped out before, so I came over to say hello. Your seats have already been arranged, let me show you in." Only then did Linus release the man's hand. "Thank you, you really didn't have to be so courteous." Apart from the small incident, the evening was actually quite pleasant. After the film ended, before heading home, Linus Thornton was called aside by the theater manager, Mr. Lumley, to discuss some more volunteer matters. While I waited for him, my mum happened to video call me. I chatted with her briefly about family matters when suddenly, from the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of Linus's shadow. He was listening intently to Mr. Lumley, nodding occasionally. The soft yellow light cast a gentle glow on his features. Hesitantly, I said, "Mum, I think I fancy a boy." Excited squeals erupted from the other end of the call, each one louder than the last. I waited a full 30 seconds before I could get a word in, adding, "But there's a problem. A big problem. He seems quite poor." The response was even more enthusiastic, screaming. My mum's voice was nearly breaking. "Melody Hayward, don't worry about whether he's rich or poor. As long as he's a good lad, Mummy has no objections. Even if he's poor, could he be poorer than your dad was back then? He was truly skint then, but we've been married for 30 years now. Has he ever raised his voice at me once?" Dad chimed in loudly, "Darling, go for it. Daddy likes the poor ones. Worst case, we'll go back to the old family pig farm." I couldn't help but laugh, covering the phone. Turning around, I saw Linus standing not far away. Oh no, I'd been discussing him with my parents. I couldn't let him know. I quickly ended the video call and turned back to smile at him. I couldn't wait to get home and discuss my romantic progress with Wilma. But she was angrily on the phone with someone. From what I could hear, it seemed she was discussing her grandmother's condition with relatives back home. By the time I'd finished getting ready for bed, Wilma had hung up and was sobbing in my arms. I worked 2 part-time jobs and just got a bonus. I transferred £5,000 to my uncle for the surgery fees, which should have been more than enough. But he's saying he wants to give up on the treatment. I begged and pleaded, but he wouldn't listen. He insists that unless I give him £20,000 for his service fees, he won't let Gran have the surgery. Melody, where am I going to get that kind of money? I was shocked by the greed of Wilma's uncle. That night, Wilma tossed and turned. I could hear her sobbing from time to time. In this situation, there was very little I could do for her. I quietly sent a WhatsApp message to my parents, asking if they could lend me some money. They just built a new factory, so cash was tight, but they still managed to give me £3,000. I just graduated and only had about £2,000 in savings myself. I transferred all of this money to Wilma, but she immediately sent it back. It's not much, but why not keep it? Every little helps. Melody, you won't let me split the rent, and you always insist on paying for our groceries. You've helped me so many times already, how could I take your money again? I'll figure something out. I'm sure I will. Wilma wiped her eyes and opened her pinned chat on WhatsApp. I recognized the profile picture. It was Alaric. Wilma grabbed her mobile and left the flat. She was gone for 2 whole nights. I sent her countless WhatsApp messages and called her repeatedly, but it was like shouting into the void. Before she left, she said to me, Melody, I'm going to find a solution. In that moment, her expression changed. I had never seen such a look on Wilma's face before. It was as if she was about to do something incredibly drastic, and she was certain of success, with no possibility of failure. Alaric is a kind person, so I thought Wilma would be safe going to see him. But I was still worried. On Monday at work, I found Alaric and asked him if he had been with Wilma over the weekend. Alaric looked strangely off. He seemed as if he hadn't slept for a day and a night, dejected and depressed. When he saw me, he got straight to the point, is Wilma in need of money? Melody Hayward, I just need you to tell me yes or no. I don't want explanations, just an answer. Yes, but... Alaric's eyes darkened. So her getting close to me, was it for money? Yes, but she... Alaric gave a mirthless smile and nodded. Right, I understand. The next moment, he pushed me by the shoulders out of his office. Go back to work, don't waste time here. I needed to explain to Alaric that Wilma's actions were not of her own free will. But given Alaric's attitude, forcing an explanation seemed unwise. I sent Wilma a message asking what I should do, and this time she finally replied. I know what I'm doing. Don't worry about me and him anymore. Because of her words, I put aside my emotions and focused on work. Halfway through the morning, while I was up to my ears in work, a heated argument suddenly erupted in the office. It was coming from Alaric's desk. Everyone in the company pricked up their ears to listen. Alaric shouted, this client should have been dealt with ages ago. They pay little and demand too much, throwing their weight around because of their connections. Linus, why are you letting them get away with it? Linus's voice was ice cold. Calm down. This is not how you should approach your work. After 3 seconds of silence, Alaric laughed bitterly. Linus Thornton, if you're happy to be a doormat, fine, but I'm done. He threw the folder in his hand to the floor and stormed out, ripping off his ID badge as he went. This scene naturally caught the attention of the department head. He glanced at Alaric's retreating back, then turned to look at Linus, his face ashen. What's going on? Linus bent down to pick up the fallen documents, saying in a resigned tone, please don't worry, I've been keeping an eye on things. He hasn't made any mistakes. Amidst the whispers of the crowd, Linus looked isolated and alone. I sent him a message, are you okay? Do you need any help? He replied briefly, don't worry about me. Due to Alaric's sudden departure, Linus had to work overtime to cover for him. I packed him some lunch, but even by 4 or 5 in the afternoon, the packaging remained unopened. By 8 in the evening, Linus had finally finished. He turned his head and was slightly surprised to see me still at my desk. But I spoke first, are you done? The restaurant next door offers half-price meals after 9 p.m. Fancy grabbing a bargain? Linus looked at me for a moment, and finally, a hint of a smile appeared on his lips. Let's do it. Seeing that he had eaten about half his meal and his mood had improved. I tried to explain that perhaps Alaric's outburst was due to an argument with Wilma, which had affected his emotions. Once Wilma replies to my message, I'll get them to apologize to you. Linus put down his fork. Why are you making excuses for Alaric? He shouted at me. Don't I have a right to feel upset? In the bustling restaurant, Linus looked at me, frowning slightly. It was then that I noticed Linus's downturned eyes, which made him look a bit innocent and pitiful. He looked too much like a pet dog sulking and trying to get attention. My heart immediately softened, and I started criticizing Alaric on his behalf. Leaving things half done, being irritable and impulsive, showing no loyalty, leaving you with a mess to clean up, just because he knows you're good-natured. The more I criticized, the more inspired I became. I'll tell him off for you. How can he treat a friend like this? Someone as poor as you couldn't possibly. Oh no. In my excitement, I had let slip what I was really thinking. How do you save the situation after saying something you shouldn't to your crush? Urgent advice needed. Linus indeed frowned. Melody, what did you say about me? Do you think I was terribly embarrassed and tried to explain. I didn't mean anything by it. I'm not looking down on you. After a moment, Linus sighed, as if resigned. Did Alaric tell you that? My eyes lit up. I nodded vigorously. Yes, yes, yes. Linus raised his hand to pinch the bridge of his nose. He's always had a loose tongue. Don't believe him. All right, I won't believe it, absolutely not. I'll give Alaric a piece of my mind later, and I won't repeat a single word. Linus finally smiled. That impressive? And so the topic turned back to Alaric, crisis averted. Although Alaric Stedman's abrupt resignation left me worried, I was overjoyed to find Wilma Elmhurst safe and sound in the bedroom when I returned home. Next time you decide to disappear, could you at least give me your location? I was so worried about you and Alaric. Wilma's eyes were a bit swollen, her face pale, but her gaze was composed. She closed her suitcase and smiled at me. We're over. My heart sank. But I got what I wanted, so I suppose it wasn't a total loss, Wilma said, her long eyelashes still wet with tears, but already making plans. I'm going to visit my hometown. I want to see my grandmother. Seeing her current state, I wasn't comfortable with her going alone. I still had 5 days of annual leave, so I offered to accompany her. Wilma was concerned about interrupting my work, but I shrugged it off. Some family we're born with, some we choose. You're the family I've chosen, so of course I'll go with you. On the way, Wilma kept checking her phone, seemingly waiting for a message from someone. I suspected she was waiting to hear from Alaric, but now wasn't the time to bring him up. I, on the other hand, received a few messages from Linus Thornton. Melody's suddenly on leave. Has she gone somewhere fun? Worried about prying into Wilma's privacy, I was unsure how to respond. I decided to be vague. I'm with my best friend. Linus was typing for quite a while before he finally sent, stay safe. Followed by, the fast food place near the office is awful. Oh, right. With Alaric and me both away from the office, Linus had lost his lunch companions. He must be feeling quite lonely. While my mind had been full of Wilma before, now that Linus was chatting with me, he was all I could think about. Unable to focus on both my best friend and my crush, I prioritized my friend. I quickly placated Linus with a "I'll treat you to something nice when I'm back," before ending the conversation. Outside Wilma's grandmother's hospital room, 7 or 8 of her relatives had gathered, taking turns criticizing Wilma for acting on her own. Behind their self-righteous words lay the despicable faces of those who had pocketed the money meant for medical care. Coming from a small family with little drama, I'd never encountered such a situation and was paralyzed with fear. Wilma, however, stood firm, a smile playing on her lips. It's my money. Of course I want to ensure it's spent where I intend it to be spent. Should I have given it to you to waste on gambling or women? Her words stripped away any pretense of decency. The next moment, her uncle rolled up his sleeves. Today, I must teach my sister's daughter a lesson on behalf of her mother. Seems like a bit of education has made her forget the meaning of filial piety. I rushed forward to intervene but was caught around the waist by a stout aunt. Young lady, this is a family matter. Don't interfere. How could it still be called a family matter when they were resorting to violence? I struggled free and pulled out my phone to call the police. Before I could dial, a shout came from the end of the corridor. Stop! Alaric strode towards us. With a cold expression, he pushed through the crowd and shielded Wilma behind him. If you want to hit my girlfriend, you'll have to go through me first. Even from a distance, I could see Wilma's eyes were red-rimmed. Her lips quivered as if asking why Alaric had come. Alaric snapped, "You were crying your eyes out, how could anyone not worry? And you blocked me on WhatsApp. If I hadn't got your address from your colleague and rushed over, what were you planning to do?" He grew angrier as he spoke, and turned to the glaring relatives. "You slapped her 3 times, so I'm returning the favor." That's fair, isn't it? I'd always been a rule follower, I'd never witnessed a fight like this before. But watching it unfold, besides worrying about Alaric, I had only one thought: Alaric looked so dashing. But his dashing moment lasted no more than 3 seconds. Wilma's uncle used his status as an elder to teach her a lesson, while the onlookers remained indifferent. Suddenly, Alaric appeared to defend her, yet he became the black sheep disrupting social order. It was truly absurd. When Alaric was taken away for questioning, he didn't seem very nervous. He just said to me wistfully, "Melody, if I'm not out in a few hours, give Linus a call, would you?" While Wilma could still argue with the officers, I had already started crying pathetically. Why call Linus? He's not involved in this. Alaric looked at me for a moment and sighed. Once he comes to scold me, he'll be involved. I didn't know why Alaric wanted me to call Linus, but since he asked, there must be a reason. Late at night, with no flights or trains available, it was impressive how quickly Linus arrived. When he saw me, he managed a smile, but his clenched fists betrayed his mood. I briefly explained the situation to Linus, then watched as he headed towards the police station. I hurried after him, worried. "Linus, I'll go in with you. If they give you trouble, I could help you argue." Linus patted my shoulder reassuringly. "They probably won't dare." Just as he finished speaking, the previously closed door swung open. Wilma's uncle's friend, who was quite influential locally, had been ranting all evening as the victim's relative about making that lad pay, coldly insulting Wilma and me. Now, he was all smiles facing Linus. "Mr. Thornton, what brings you here?" My heart skipped a beat. Why was it Mr. Thornton again? Oblivious to my confused gaze, Linus smiled back, respectfully shaking the man's hand. "I'm sorry, Mr. Lumley, my friend has caused you trouble." What happened next left Wilma and me dumbfounded. Both parties reached an agreement within minutes, and Alaric and Linus were swiftly escorted to the town's most luxurious hotel. "That's the young master of the Stedman Group. We mustn't neglect him." Wilma was puzzled. Is Alaric the young master of the Stedman Group? But I searched online, and their family name is Thornton. Well, there was only one truth. Linus was a hidden tycoon. Wilma gasped. "Melody, didn't you say Linus was penniless?" I was equally confused. He really was. My eyes were my measuring stick. But for some reason, my measuring stick had failed me. Seeing everyone's adoration for Linus, I couldn't possibly still believe he was just a nobody. How laughable that I'd been making him join me for £10 discount lunches every day. He must have thought I was mad. I said mournfully, "I need to get back to work." Now that Wilma's knight in shining armor had arrived, there was no point in me staying any longer. I had barely returned when Linus Thornton followed right behind me. When we met in the office, I tried to avoid him as soon as I saw him. But Linus quickly blocked my path. "Why are you hiding? Don't you recognize me?" I did recognize him, but we weren't particularly close. "Melody, I need to talk to you," he said. Before I could respond, he continued, "Didn't you say you'd treat me to a nice meal when you got back? Don't try to wriggle out of it." This time, I couldn't escape the promise. After work, Linus and I went to a coffee shop. As usual, he handed me the menu first, but I wasn't in the mood and only ordered a bowl of porridge. Linus couldn't help but smile. "What's wrong? No appetite?" He was still the same person, but knowing he was from a wealthy family made me feel uncomfortable. I stammered, "I misunderstood you. I've been taking you to cheap lunches all this time." You must have many complaints. You could afford much more expensive meals. After placing the order, Linus leaned in and said sincerely, but I've really enjoyed the places you've taken me to. If the nutritional value is the same, what's wrong with cheaper and more affordable options? I couldn't help but say, but the Stedman Group. Linus finally dropped his joking manner. Actually, I wanted to explain that to you. He pulled out a file from his notebook. Look, Melody. My name isn't listed among the controlling shareholders or actual controllers. So my connection to the Stedman Group isn't as deep as you might think. If it wasn't for helping Alaric out of trouble this time, I wouldn't have borrowed the tiger's might. I'm just an ordinary person, nothing special. I finally felt relieved. That's great. My family only owns a small factory, a very small one. I was worried I wouldn't be good enough for you. Oh no, I said the wrong thing again in my excitement. Linus clearly understood what I meant. He spoke slowly and very seriously. Actually, I've been really happy spending time with you, Melody. If you feel the same way, would you like to be my girlfriend? The boy I liked actually confessed to me. Could there be anything more exciting in the world? My cheeks were burning, and I could hardly breathe. My stomach growled in agreement before I could speak. Covering my stomach, I nodded vigorously. Yes, I'd love to. Linus's eyes were full of tenderness. I'll go and hurry up our order. He deliberately drew out his words. Can't let my girlfriend go hungry, can I? Linus Thornton and Alaric Stedman were university classmates. Linus was diligent and excelled in both academics and character, while Alaric was carefree and often caused more trouble than he solved. Upon graduation, Alaric's father ordered him to train at the family company. Alaric dragged Linus along to accompany him. The two of them set out to uncover an insider at the company who was embezzling funds. They took an unconventional approach by submitting their CVs to an upstream supplier, which happens to be the company where I work. A few days ago, Alaric had an argument with Wilma, putting him in a foul mood. To make matters worse, he encountered a relative who pretended to know everything, causing the young master to lose his temper. He nearly got a thrashing from his father afterwards. As a result, Alaric felt guilty about causing trouble and only dared to ask Linus to clean up his mess. After explaining the situation, Linus made sure to remind me, the investigation is still ongoing, so please don't tell anyone else in the company about Alaric's and my true intentions. It wasn't just this that we couldn't disclose, we also had to keep our relationship a secret because the company strictly forbids internal employee romances. So to the outside world, Linus and I appeared to be nothing more than cordial colleagues. But during lunch, we would secretly hold hands in secluded corners, our fingers intertwined. On a stuffy afternoon, when everyone in the office was feeling drowsy, a group of uniformed police officers suddenly arrived. They first entered the manager's office, then promptly escorted a colleague from the finance department away. The tense atmosphere left me feeling uneasy. However, someone quietly approached and took hold of my hand. His hand was warm and dry, gripping mine with just the right amount of pressure to ease my worries. I turned to see it was Linus. He must have sensed my low spirits, so he stood in front of me, blocking my view. "Don't be afraid, it'll be over soon," he said. He was addicted to horse racing and owed hundreds of thousands. To cover the debt, he took a risk and embezzled a significant amount of company funds. Just as Linus had said, the commotion settled within a couple of hours. As for Alaric, he followed the trail and successfully rooted out the employees colluding with outsiders in his family's company, catching them all in one fell swoop. Everything was moving in a positive direction. A few days later, Wilma received a promotion opportunity that required her to train in another city for a year. Having shared a flat with her for nearly half a year, I felt quite sad about parting ways. On the day Wilma moved out, both Alaric and Linus came to help. Alaric escorted Wilma to her new place, while Linus stayed behind to help me clean up. Before we knew it, it was already 10 p.m. Linus was drenched in sweat, and I couldn't bear to see him like that. "Why don't you take a shower before you leave?" I suggested. I used to read single women's safety guides and bought a few men's clothes to hang on the balcony. "You can change into those." He refused, but I insisted. After a few back and forths, Linus smiled wryly. "I'm afraid if I take a shower, I won't be able to leave. My self-control might not be as good as you think." What on earth is he talking about? Does he think I'm trying to keep him here under the guise of offering a shower? I candidly said, my sofa can be used as a bed. I have spare blankets and pillows too. Just as I finished speaking, a bolt of lightning suddenly flashed across the previously pitch-black sky. In an instant, hailstones the size of eggs came clattering down. I assured him earnestly, feel free to stay, I have good self-control. However, I've always had a tendency to overestimate myself. Linus came out after his shower, wearing the pure white cotton t-shirt I had bought. Oblivious to my gaze, he toweled his hair, musing up his usually neatly combed locks into a carelessly tousled style. He looked absolutely delectable. I forcibly tore my eyes away, swallowing hard as I tried to sound normal. I found a film a few days ago, shall we watch it together? I had chosen an artsy romance. My tears come easily. I started crying from the moment the main characters had their misunderstanding, and I was still crying by the end when they finally reconciled. Linus held me close, occasionally nuzzling my forehead to comfort me. By the time the film ended, I had made a rather comfortable dent in the sofa from lying there. The living room sofa seemed quite spacious. It wouldn't be impossible for two people to squeeze in together to sleep. Linus's lips slowly moved from my forehead to the tip of my nose, then further down. His breath enveloped me completely. My heart was pounding, but I struggled to maintain my composure. Linus, still somewhat rational, pulled me out of his embrace and led me by the hand towards the bedroom. We can't. But why? It's too late, we shouldn't stay up. Go to sleep now. That weekend, half asleep, I heard Linus open the door and call out, Melody, I'm going out to buy breakfast. Through the half-open bedroom door, I saw that he had already tidied away the pillow and blanket from the sofa. He really was such a diligent and organized man. I rolled over to continue sleeping, and I'm not sure how much time passed before someone started stroking my head, trying to wake me. Stop it, Linus. I opened my eyes irritably, only to be struck speechless with shock. My parents were standing by the bed, smiling down at me. Little sleepyhead, we missed you and came to see you. Goodness, why did they suddenly come over without any warning? I mumbled a response, sitting up and looking around to confirm Linus wasn't in the flat. I quickly reached for my phone to send him a warning message on WhatsApp. But my mom snatched the phone away, feigning anger, playing with your phone as soon as you wake up? It's bad for your eyes. Go and freshen up. This was bad, I had to notify Linus. How would I explain if he came back and ran into my parents? Just then, the door, which had been left ajar, was pushed open. Linus walked in with a bag of breakfast, a smile on his face. His gaze swept over my confused parents, my distressed expression, and the small suitcase in the living room. He immediately grasped the situation. Clearing his throat, he called out, Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Hayward. I'm Melody's friend, we had planned to go for a morning run today. I ought to give Linus Thornton an award for his acting skills. My parents have always been eager for me to start dating. Now that they've met such a handsome and dashing young man, they're beaming with joy. Is he just a friend, or a boyfriend, Melody? What do you say? They asked. The fabricated morning jog plan was instantly abandoned. My parents invited Linus to sit on the sofa and began questioning him about everything from his height and age to his university, from his hobbies and talents to his dietary preferences. Linus sat up straight like the most diligent student, answering each question in turn. Clearly, the examiners were satisfied. My dad waved his hand, Linus, my boy, you head home for now, but come back here for dinner this evening. I knew exactly what my parents were thinking. They had finished interrogating Linus, and now it was my turn for questioning. Sure enough, after Linus left, my parents started talking one after another. The young man is well-spoken and polite. Very good. He's 4 years older than Melody, which is just right. It's just that his family seems a bit poor. My dad turned to look at me. Would Linus be interested in helping out at our pig farm? Actually, being poor isn't a problem. As long as he's a good person and treats our daughter well, we'll be happy. A harmonious family is the foundation of everything, after all. I finally managed to get a word in, well, Linus might not actually be that poor. My dad patted my head affectionately, our daughter is afraid we won't accept Linus, so she's trying her best to speak well of him. It's all right, you don't need to lie. Dad doesn't look down on him. This weekend was destined to be busy. While accompanying my parents shopping, buying groceries, and visiting relatives and friends, I was simultaneously replying to Linus's rapid-fire WhatsApp messages. What do your aunt and uncle like? I want to prepare some gifts. I was nervous this morning. I hope I didn't mess up. We absolutely can't have any slip-ups tonight. Is this the review and preparation ability of a good student? I quickly replied, my dad loves tea, and my mum loves cooking. Linus sent back a got it and then disappeared for the entire day. When he arrived at our house in the evening, my parents had naturally prepared a table full of delicious dishes. Linus brought gifts. In his left hand was a fruit gift box, which was reasonably priced, but the paper bag in his right hand was extraordinary. 6 plainly packaged tea cakes, each with several bright red zeros on the price tag. I stared at the tea cakes, my eyes nearly popping out, trying to count exactly how many digits there were. I moved closer to Linus and whispered, why did you buy such expensive tea? It's not made of gold. He looked puzzled for a moment. Don't misunderstand, Melody. It's not that expensive. What? You call several £1,000s worth of English breakfast tea not expensive? I turned around, but it was too late to stop it. My dad had already opened one of the tea cakes, using a tea knife to pry off a corner. While tossing the 4-digit price tea leaves into the pot to brew, he praised its wonderful aroma. Well, we might as well keep one cake and return the other 5 to Linus. The dinner was enjoyed by all, host and guest alike. Except for me, who kept glancing at the teapot, filled with worry and preoccupation. After the meal, my dad and I saw Linus out, leaving my mum at home to tidy up. When we returned, she was standing in the kitchen, critically examining my refrigerator. There are eggs in the fridge, and Linus brought tea. Melody, Mom will make you tea eggs for breakfast. I repeatedly refused my mum's sudden idea, but she had already thrown the tea cake labeled £1,800 into a small pot. A truly extravagant tea egg. As the eggs rolled in the pot, my mum instructed me in the tone of a loving mother-in-law. When you go to work, take some tea eggs for Linus to try as well. They're sure to be delicious. One taste, and he won't forget it. Let him know in advance that his mother-in-law's cooking skills are not to be underestimated. To be honest, the tea eggs my mum made this time were particularly delicious. No wonder, at £180 each, they taste of money. How could they not be good? Why did Linus Thornton send such expensive tea? However, while the tea costs thousands of pounds, his clothes cost nothing. What kind of spending structure is this? Feeling troubled, I picked up my phone and searched for clothes, homemade. Suddenly, I came across a documentary recommended by netizens. European nobility have all their clothes made by tailors employed by their families, stitched by hand, luxurious and grand. I suddenly understood. I shouldn't have believed Linus when he said he was just an ordinary person. He must be a super rich person in disguise. He must have hidden his identity because he was afraid I would feel inferior. Although he's a good person, I don't want to be deceived. That day at work, we were both busy and had no time for a date. It wasn't until we were about to leave that I finally got the chance to express my inner doubts. Why did you send tea to my parents? You said your uncle loves tea, didn't you? But it's too expensive. It's not expensive, don't worry. Don't lie, I know the price, it's £40,000 per piece. I frowned as I returned the other unopened packages to Linus. It's too expensive, I can't accept it. Linus was stunned. I bought these from a friend who owns a tea plantation, it took me half a day to get them. There's no packaging or brand, how did Melody know the price? Indeed, the ones without brands are the most expensive. Under Linus's intense gaze, I chose to tell the truth. Since my 23rd birthday, I've had a superpower. I can know the price of any item I see. For example, your smartwatch is £4,500, the fruit basket you brought the other day was £360. And the coffee you bought this morning was probably only £10 because you used a voucher. Linus's shocked expression lingered for a long time before returning to his usual doting look. He said, Melody is so amazing. After suddenly gaining this ability, I was troubled for a long time, always feeling like I was prying into other people's privacy. It took a while before I finally accepted it. Being praised by Linus like this, it seemed like it really was an amazing ability. However, the doubt I had been harboring for so long couldn't be brushed aside so easily. I said, "So, why are all your clothes priced at zero? At first I thought you were very poor, but now after receiving the tea, I've realized, are all your clothes custom made?" Linus suddenly understood. "So when you thought I was poor, it wasn't Alaric tricking you, but your own guess?" He smiled helplessly. "All right, I was planning to take you home after a while, but since you've asked, let's go to my home now." Linus took me to a quiet little courtyard. The yard wasn't large, but it was well maintained. Blue and purple hydrangeas bloomed elegantly along the wall. A kind-looking old lady was sitting in a wicker chair. Linus called out to her, "Grandmother, look who's here, it's Melody. I've often mentioned her to you." The old lady seemed not to hear, stood up with a smile and said, "Godric, you're back, I'll make you dinner." With that, she turned and walked towards the kitchen. The old lady moved quite nimbly, but her mind seemed a bit confused. Linus whispered, "Godric is my grandfather. This is my grandmother, she was a tailor all her life. And gave the money she earned to my grandfather as startup capital for his business. The business grew more and more prosperous, but the falling out with his partners was something my grandfather couldn't have predicted. Later, even his own 3 children were constantly scheming against each other, never at peace. Even my father died in a car accident due to business matters." I gasped in shock, and Linus smiled faintly. "So I was raised by my grandmother. Before my grandfather passed away, he entrusted me to take care of grandmother, to not let her be worn out by the struggles for profit. But in such an environment, who could remain uninvolved? So I transferred the group's shares equally to all relatives and brought grandmother here. A few years ago, grandmother couldn't sit idle, so she made clothes for me every day. I thought that doing something might ease her pain of missing grandfather, so I let her be. Later, as she got older, she occasionally became confused and mistook me for grandfather. So I wear the clothes she makes every day, pretending to be grandfather coming back." He told this story calmly, but my eyes stung, and I almost cried. Linus must have gone through a lot of hardships growing up. As night fell, dinner was served, and the aroma filled the air. Grandmother enthusiastically urged me to eat. I turned my emotion into appetite, unabashedly finishing a bowl of food and asking if I could have more. Grandmother picked up my empty bowl and instructed the housekeeper, "Give this young lady another bowl." Linus pretended to be jealous. "Grandmother, what about me?" Grandmother smiled, "You eat less, come with me." The grandmother and grandson pair went to the bedroom, seemingly plotting something. After dinner, grandmother pulled me along, wanting to take my measurements to make a cheongsam suit. When measuring my waist, I felt a bit worried about the dinner I had just eaten, but grandmother smiled, "I know, I'll make it a bit tighter." In the workroom, there was a wall full of shelves stacked with fabrics. Grandmother said, some were gifts from friends, some were accumulated over the years. When I see a child I like, I want to make clothes for them. Various colored silk fabrics were compared against me, and I chose an ivory white one, but grandmother satisfactorily folded a bright red one. "This one will be useful in the future." The fabric was indeed beautiful, with a lustrous sheen like agate, but it wasn't for everyday wear. Where could it be used? It was getting late, so I said goodbye. As Linus was sending me home, he kept smiling subtly. I pinched his waist. "Are you laughing because I ate more than you?" "Don't laugh." Linus cleared his throat and said, "Actually, grandmother secretly told me that she's kept a piece of bright red fabric, wanting to make a special outfit for you." "What kind of special outfit?" I pressed, but Linus just smiled mysteriously, "For us to wear when we get engaged in the future." "Do you dare to wear it?" My face heated up, but I refused to show shyness under Linus's gaze. Then I took out a plastic bag from my backpack. Inside was a round tea egg. It was originally meant to be Linus's breakfast, but I forgot to give it to him in the morning. Now it was perfect to tease him with. "This is from my mom to her son-in-law. Do you dare to eat it?" Under the dim night sky, Linus's eyes were clear. He smiled and hugged me tightly. "I like Melody. Melody likes me too. So why wouldn't I dare to eat it?"